I wanted to talk to you guys about RAW versus JPEG. They're two different file types that you can shoot. One thing you might immediately notice is that a RAW file is a lot bigger. It takes a lot more memory to hold it, and it also takes longer to write to your camera. You need more storage on your computer. So why in the world would you shoot RAW when you could shoot a JPEG, which is a lot smaller? You can instantly upload them to social media. You don't have to convert them to a JPEG. What are the pros and cons of RAW versus JPEG? A lot of people don't even know what RAW is. They don't even know that that's an option. So we're going to talk about those, and the easiest way is to just show you. So I'm going to do that in 1 second, but first I'm going to attempt to explain it. So when you take a picture, all of your pixels, they're collecting information. And when you look at a JPEG, that is your camera's interpretation of what that image should look like. So your camera applies your saturation, your contrast, your clarity. It adjusts your highlights, your shadows. It even sets your white balance for you, and it gives you a JPEG. So that's a finished picture. Where a RAW file is, it's just kind of like the raw information. There's no contrast applied, no clarity, no anything, no white balance. It's just information. So the way I kind of think about it is similar to like a cake. So a JPEG is a cake. It's finished. It's got the frosting. It's got, it's chocolate or vanilla. It's already chosen. It's picked. It's done. It's a JPEG. It's a final cake. Where a RAW file is similar to just having all the ingredients laid out, and you can decide what you want to do with those. So do you want to add more sugar or less sugar? Do you want to make it chocolate or vanilla? It's up to the photographer to decide that later on, what they want their image to look like. Where a JPEG, as soon as you take that image, it's done. It's complete. You can adjust it later, but it's kind of like taking your cake, baking it, it's finished, and then adding sugar on top of it. It might kind of work, but it's not as good as if you would have added the sugar from the start. So some situations where RAW is going to help you. If you ever shoot a picture, period, you've probably noticed a messed up white balance at some point. When you take a picture in the RAW file format, the white balance is not baked in. It's not part of the image. So you can adjust that later, and it has no effect on your final image quality. Whether you shoot it correctly in camera or you adjust it later on in post-processing, it does not matter. It's the same exact thing. So if you do not nail your white balance in a RAW file, it doesn't matter. It's fine. If you don't nail your white balance in a JPEG, there's some big problems later. Adjusting that later can just look weird. And then also your shadows and your highlights can be pulled back or pushed forward a lot better with a RAW file. So I'm just going to show you this.
So here I have two files I took last night. This is a barn. It means nothing crazy. I just wanted to show you guys what shooting in the wrong file type will do to your images. So say I wanted to take a picture of this and I don't want the sky to be blown out. So I darken it. But when I'm darkening it, I somehow accidentally mess up my white balance and make it too dark. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I'm going to open up this. It's the RAW file, and that is the JPEG. I didn't change any settings. I left everything identical. It looks a little bit different because one's RAW and one's a JPEG, but I'm going to show you what the difference is. So here's a RAW file. I can just drag my shadows up here. I can turn the exposure up, my highlights back down. And then I can adjust this white balance, and it's just like I shot it correctly in camera. So, I mean, it's super versatile. I can do whatever. I can make any adjustments I want, and the picture's fine. It's not the best picture in the world because I was just trying to find a sample. I can zoom into this guy to 100%. Let's go to exactly 100%. And there's a little bit of noise, but I mean, that's not bad at all. Hey, Goose. What's up, Goose? So let's do the same thing. Actually, let's just save these settings. So that way it's the exact same settings. And you'll see how awful this JPEG looks. So with the exact same settings, this is what it looks like. So we have some problems. So I can go in here and I can adjust this. And now it's too green. You can come in and you can mess with your split tones to try and get the tones and the highlights and the shadows better. It's just going to be a lot more work. I mean, that's gross. It's just gross. So I'm going to zoom into this to 100%. And the color noise in that is awful. I mean, look at my goose. You can't even see his orange beak. How sad. If I switch back to the raw file and zoom into 100%, we've got my little goose guy there. There he is. I can even see his eyeball. All these colors are correct. You go into the JPEG. Poor goose. He doesn't even have an eyeball. This thing, the color's all messed up. So that's just the difference. Same exact settings. I mean, look at the trees. That's gross. So I don't know. That's just real simple, RAW versus JPEG. One more quick example. I shot these. Sarah's probably going to hate me that I'm using these. Sorry. So I shot these. The exposure was about right, but I royally messed up the white balance so that I could show you what it does. So I shot it here. Ooh, that's gross. I can just warm it up, and it's like nothing. It's perfect. It's like I shot that in camera. And you can tell. But if you do that to a JPEG, watch this. Look at the colors in the shadows, like in her hair and the pants. You just don't have the versatility and the latitude with the adjustments like you do in a RAW file.
So I hope you guys can see the difference in the RAW versus JPEG debate. RAW file just gives you so much more latitude. You can adjust the white balance back and forth like it was right to start with. You can adjust your contrast, your clarity. You can get so much more out of your shadows without causing insane amounts of noise. Your color noise is going to be way less in those shadow areas. There's just so much more you can do with that file. So I can have a RAW file that I took today, and then in 10 years I can go back to that RAW file and adjust it however I want. And it's like it was like that from the beginning. It's like I said, it's just the ingredients. It's just the raw information that you have when you take the picture. It's not already put together. Your camera doesn't put it together for you as a JPEG. It's just the raw information. So it takes up about double the space. My JPEG, I think, was 25 megabytes and the RAW file was almost 50. So you're going to have more storage. It's going to take longer to write to your memory card. So we talked about that a week or two ago about just the speed of your memory card. So you will need a faster memory card if you're shooting RAW than if you're shooting JPEG because the JPEGs are smaller. But shooting RAW has saved us a lot. Say you're outside shooting at sunrise or sunset and your white balance is all the way to the right or left, and then you go back in the church at a wedding and there's something super cute happening and you just take a picture, but you were just outside, now you're inside. You didn't change your settings because it happened so fast, so your image is super dark, your white balance is super messed up. If you have a RAW file, there's a really good chance you can recover that information. But if you're shooting JPEG, it's going to be a lot harder. So there's a lot of people that are like, well, just get it right in camera. Just shoot it correctly in camera. And that's exactly right. So if you get 100% of your images 100% correct in camera, then shoot JPEG. There's no reason to shoot RAW. But if occasionally you miss a shot by having an incorrect white balance or your exposure is too high or too low, then shoot RAW. The only downside is the file size. But that I've never shot JPEG for anything professional I've ever done, just because there's no need. I have fast memory cards. Storage is so cheap. So just shoot RAW. You're going to get so much more out of your files. You're going to be able to recover so much more. And especially if you mess up, there's just so much more forgiveness with the RAW file. So shoot RAW if you can. The last thing I wanted to say is you have to have a program to convert that RAW file. So if we use the analogy of the cake, you have to have a way to bake the cake. So you have to have a way to convert that RAW file to a JPEG, because you can't upload a RAW file to Facebook. You can't upload a raw file to Instagram or send that to your brides. You have to convert it. You have to bake it into a JPEG for the bride or for Facebook or whatever. So we use Lightroom or Camera Raw. There's a million programs that'll do it. Most people use Lightroom or Photoshop or Camera Raw. And what you do is you edit the raw file and then you export it as a JPEG and then you send that JPEG off or you upload that JPEG, but you still have the raw file. So you can always go back and edit the raw file. So it's not like you shoot a JPEG, you edit the JPEG, and then you want to go back later and you edit the JPEG again. Every time you edit it, it just gets worse and worse. With the raw file, not the case. You can edit it as much as you want. So go out there, shoot raw, and it'll change your life.